This is Mrs. Jellineck. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who really knows how to take care of herself. And this is Mrs. Carmody. She's a private eye. Oh, and by the way, I'm Joe, the cook. I take care of Mrs. Jellineck and Mrs. Carmody, which is quite a challenge, because when we all get together, it's murder!
Lovely day we're having, Mrs. Jellineck. Mrs. Carmody, it is so nice to get out of the city and spend one's time at a lovely English country house for the weekend. Jellineck, we're off duty. Call me Nora. Okay, Nora then. Summerhall Hillhouse has been in me cousin, Lady Elizabeth Summerhall's family since 1585. Shall I be mother? That would be lovely.
We can't have our famous house guests serve themselves.
God bless us and save us, if it isn't Dare Cook.
Mrs. Carmody and Mrs. Jellineck, our famous crime-solving duo from London. Taking a break from solving well-known murders in the city, then.
'Tis true, our celebrated detective service keeps us on our toes. But let's not dwell on all the prominent murders we've solved in London over the past year. Instead, let's enjoy a beautiful view of the English countryside. God bless us and save us, if it isn't Dare Cousin Elizabeth. Lady Summerhall, what a beautiful summer dress.
Oh, my dears, I see you're enjoying a lovely cup of Yorkshire brew. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't feel quite...
Elizabeth! Elizabeth, love!
It's the hypoglycemia!
I'm sorry, Mrs. Carmody, but your cousin is dead.
This is Mrs. Jellineck. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who really knows how to take care of herself. And this is Mrs. Carmody. She's a private eye. Oh, and by the way, I'm Joe, the cook. I take care of Mrs. Jellineck and Mrs. Carmody, which is quite a challenge, because when we all get together, it's murder!
You've had quite a shock.
Classic move.
I'm sorry I don't follow. Well, if it isn't himself, Lord Summerhall.
I hurried back from London because I had wonderful news for Elizabeth.
How nice, what about?
Elizabeth begged me to move her back to the city. She missed her friends, so I rented us a beautiful little flat. I was bursting with the news.
Lady Elizabeth was lonely?
She was more than lonely. From my Google search, I deduced she may have a depression.
Such a lovely lass to have. A depression. You don't think...
That she may have done something desperate. Well, it wouldn't be her first attempt.
I had no idea. Elizabeth was in such pain.
And suicidal.
It's pretty clear from this conversation that she killed herself.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Now that Lord Summerhall is gone, I must tell you, I think most certainly foul play is afoot. You mean you don't believe Elizabeth killed herself? Of course not. That's something husbands say when they're the ones guilty of murder. What would be his motive? Yesterday, when I was speaking with Cook.
Mrs. Jellineck, I was hoping to catch you alone. There is something I must tell you. Lord Summerhall is set to inherit all Summerhall Hillhouse.
Wait an Irish second. Where is I when you're spaking to Cook? Napping. Oh, I do love me cuddles by the fire. Go on then. Well, Cook told me.
I am not one to gossip, but Lord and Lady Summerhall have been having marital discord, and Lady Elizabeth was about to leave Lord Summerhall. But he couldn't have that because his gambling debts are astronomical. He needs money fast.
But what was the weapon? And how did he do it? Exactly why we need to inspect Lady Summerhall's body. Bring your magnifying reader glass and let's be about it. Let's be about it.
This is Mrs. Jellineck. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who really knows how to take care of herself. And this is Mrs. Carmody. She's a private eye. Oh, and by the way, I'm Joe, the cook. I take care of Mrs. Jellineck and Mrs. Carmody, which is quite a challenge, because when we all get together, it's murder!
So beautiful, me dear cousin Elizabeth. Nora, are you going to be able to do this? Of course. Let's get started. Well, her hands look fine. No sign of struggle, nothing under her nails. No sign of suffocation. Mrs. Jellineck, look! There's a tiny needle mark on the side of her neck. How did you see that?
Me magnifier reader's glass.
It is a mark from an injection. But an injection of what? We'll have Constable McIntyre do a toxicology report and then we'll know for sure. But I'm guessing it was something toxic. So toxic, it killed poor Elizabeth.
Yes. Yes, it does.
This is Mrs. Jellineck. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who really knows how to take care of herself. And this is Mrs. Carmody. She's a private eye. Oh, and by the way, I'm Joe, the cook. I take care of Mrs. Jellineck and Mrs. Carmody, which is quite a challenge, because when we all get together, it's murder!
Let me save you two old busybodies the trouble.
Oh, Richard, I'm just exhausted. I have no energy at all.
Darling Elizabeth, I have just the thing for you. Vitamin B12.
Will it help? Oh, darling, I feel so fat. Do you still think I'm pretty?
You're beautiful. Now try this. My trainer Bruno highly recommends it.
But I don't like jabs.
Elizabeth, darling, don't be a baby. It won't hurt a bit. Now look, you're beautiful and you look like you've lost at least a stone already.
Oh, really? Do you think so?
Yes, I do. Now here, keep still. You'll feel right as rain soon, my dear. Insulin is a deadly toxin to someone with hypoglycemia. Poor Elizabeth needed a snack every 2 hours or she'd get dizzy or hangry. It's a cross between hungry and angry. Adorable. I told Lady Summerhall I was giving her a dose of vitamin B12, when actually it was a lethal amount of insulin.
So you could inherit Summerhall Hillhouse. Summerhall Hillhouse and all of Lady Elizabeth's money. Lady Elizabeth was going to leave you with nothing. You'd better pack your bags because you're going to prison for a very long time.
First of all, they don't let you take your bags to prison. And second of all, I'm going nowhere. And third of all, neither are you, because you're staying here to rot in the crypt with my beautiful wife.
This is Mrs. Jellineck. She's gorgeous. She's one lady who really knows how to take care of herself. And this is Mrs. Carmody. She's a private eye. Oh, and by the way, I'm Joe, the cook. I take care of Mrs. Jellineck and Mrs. Carmody, which is quite a challenge, because when we all get together, it's murder!
You picked that lock like it was your job. Bobby pins are why I wear a Gibson girl hairstyle. Lord Summerhall should be settling into his cell right about now. Constable McIntyre said Lord Summerhall had a record sheet about a mile long. Lady Elizabeth didn't know who she was marrying. A crook, a villain, and a murderer. Now, we're the ladies of Summerhall Hillhouse. You were next in Lady Summerhall's family line. Fortunate for us. But we do need to get back to the city and see what other crimes need to be solved. That's one thing you can count on. There'll always be more murder.
Lovely evening, Mrs. Carmody, Mrs. Jellineck.
I wonder. Cook, now that Summerhall Hillhouse will be closed for the season, would you like to accompany Jellineck and I back to London and work for us there?
I'd love to, on one condition. You must call me Jo, short for Joanna.
Right you are, Joe. A classic move. I'm sorry, I don't follow.
Mrs. Jellineck! Mrs. Carmody, thank goodness! Constable McIntyre said I'd find you here.
Baroness Ipswich, whatever's the matter?
A murder. Most hideous. Next to the curiosity shop. Please, London needs you to solve this horrible crime.
There'll always be more murder. Jellineck, will you join us, Joe?
Of course.
Let's be about it.
Let's be about it!